My name is Kate, and a little bit about me. Last year I attended a coding bootcamp in London called Founders and Coders, and now I work as a junior engineer in internal product at the Financial Times. And today I am really excited to talk to you about guinea pigs. No, just kidding. As already said, this is the title of my talk. But while I tell you a little bit about the inspiration for this project, you can contemplate my beautiful guinea pig Mopsa's face. So as a junior developer, I love building silly side projects because they often let me try out new and different things that I wouldn't be introduced to otherwise at work. And I find it the most fun when you take some unconnected things, combine them in weird ways to make something really interesting, something that will keep your attention maybe better than just a straightforward tutorial. And I found that really important when I was first learning to code and finding some concepts really hard to grasp. For loops, like when you're coming from like no coding knowledge, it's wild. But I still find that it helps today. So one such thing that I'd been wanting to learn was coding audio. I've always loved music, and since learning to code, the idea that you can produce music with code is pretty fascinating. There's libraries like tone.js, which has arpeggiators and synths built in, so you can start to make some pretty decent electronic music on that just using JavaScript. It can be intimidating, though, to work with a library like that when you don't even know the basics of audio coding, so I wanted to start really simple. So the Web Audio API allows you to create basic sounds in the browser, which can be mixed and changed to create more complex sounds. But the simplest function of the Web Audio API is to create an oscillator. And an oscillator represents the sine wave of a tone being played at a certain hertz frequency, but we just hear a constant tone. The default is A 440 hertz, which band and orchestra nerds in the audience will know as the A note that you use to tune against. I'm not going to play all 10 hours, don't worry. I love that someone uploaded. Yes, so, yeah, so when you create an oscillator with the Web Audio API, it sounds like that. And so I experimented a little bit with changing the pitch, modulating the volume, etc. And that was fun to play around with, but then I was kind of like, right, what do I do with these boops? Maybe turn it down slightly. So thankfully around that time, I was reminded of one of my favorite movies from my childhood, The Rescuers Down Under. Specifically, yeah, good Disney fans in the audience. Specifically the telegraph scene. So it's a movie about a pair of mice, Bernard and Bianca, who travel the world saving children from danger. And at the beginning of the movie, the first Rescuers was made in 1977, so even though this sequel was made in 1990, I don't think email had quite caught on with the Rescue Aid Society yet. So I had an idea that I was excited to build. I wanted to be able to type something and turn it into Morse code, like in that scene. And then I did some research into Morse code and got even more excited because its history and the history of the telegraph it was invented for is really cool. So before the telegraph was invented, this was the quickest way to get letters sent across the United States, probably slightly bigger horses and probably not moonwalking, but it was called the Pony Express. From Missouri, the last major inhabited bit of the East Coast in the mid-1800s, across the states to San Francisco, it took an average of 10 days to deliver a letter in the summer, up to 16 in the winter. And the fastest they ever delivered something was Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address, and that took 7 days to go just 2/3 of the way across the country. To put it more in perspective, internationally, letters could take up to 73 days to go from London to Sydney, so that's like if something big happened on New Year's Eve, and you didn't even find out about it until March 15th. It's a long time. So the first commercial electric telegraph was put to use in 1838 in London, and it made it to the States by 1844, and over the next couple of years was put to use throughout the country, and in 1861 the Pony Express sadly came to an end. So this is an 1873 painting, The Last Ride of the Pony Express, and it shows a Pony Express rider passing the work crews installing the transcontinental telegraph. He does not look really pleased. But it was revolutionary, and within about a decade, communicating across the continent went from about 10 days to mere minutes. So the era of quick, easy, long-distance communication had begun, and we all know where it's ended up. I mean, thankfully it's come a little bit past this, but The impact of electrical telegraphs, and by extent the Morse code adopted for this and other long-distance communications after it, really can't be understated. And as if all of this wasn't jazzy enough already, Morse code itself is pretty cool. So it was originally used to make imprints, not ink, but just imprints on the paper tape coming out of the telegraph, which was read and translated. Shorter marks were called dots, longer ones called dashes, and then there were the unindented pauses in between. But what Morse telegraph operators soon learned was that they could directly translate the clicking of the arm used to make imprints and didn't even have to read the tape once they became fluent in the audible clicks and pauses. It was actually found later that people became more fluent in Morse code when it's taught as an audible code rather than a visual one. But now, pretty much anything where there are two binary states, on or off, light or dark, sound or mute, 1 or 0, you can use to send messages in Morse code. So I've digressed enough, but hopefully you are now also super jazzed about Morse code. So how do we go about coding something that changes text into audible Morse code? I had no idea. So like many programming projects, thinking about the whole thing kind of turned my brain inside out a little bit. So I knew this would be a really good way as a junior to practice breaking down a larger project into manageable tasks, something we do in our jobs every day as programmers. So my goal is I want to turn a string like SOS into audible Morse code. I want to input a string and parse each symbol, meaning a letter, a space, or a number, into dots, dashes, and pauses. And then I want to turn these dot, dashes, and pauses into audio. So first thing, we take the input string and sanitize it since Morse code only deals with numbers and letters. And what I did was turn it into an array of symbols. And then using a JavaScript map to correlate each symbol with its equivalent in Morse code, using zeros to represent dots and ones to represent dashes. So we end up with an array of arrays, so many arrays, where each inner array represents the symbols. So in this case, 000 for S, 111 for O, and 000 again for S. And then we further process that array to give us a step-by-step representation of how the Morse code is going to sound. So in Morse code, dots last 1 unit of time, and dashes last 3. It's all relative. So within one letter, like S, which comprises 3 dashes, the pause between the dashes will be 1 unit, and the pauses between letters of the same word, so between the S, the O, and the S, will be 3 units, and then finally, the pause between full words, so if we said SOS twice, the pause between that would be 7 units. So at the bottom, we have our full representation of SOS ready to be turned into audio, and you can see why I used such a short thing for the demonstration, because it gets a lot really quickly. And then to create the oscillators I mentioned earlier, we create an audio context in our browser, and we place an oscillator inside it, and we give the oscillator gain or volume, so we can hear it, and we connect those. And then to create the Morse code, we'll modulate the volume on and off to create the effects of the dots or dashes and the pauses between them. So in this example, we start the oscillator on full volume, 1, and set it to mute after 1 second, turn it back to full volume at 2 seconds. And this is all set up before the oscillator is turned on. So when we start it, it goes through these steps, and then we stop it after 3 seconds. And so with the same logic, we write a function that takes into account these units of time all of our parts of Morse code last, and create for us this predetermined set of gain statements that will give us the audio of what we've written. And I'm gonna try, and oh my gosh, so. Oh. There's the full. So, fun. So, I was very proud of this silly little side project, and I was thinking maybe I could start making it to more complex things, layering some oscillators, making some music, and then someone was like, wouldn't it be hilarious to make a chat room where you could just send Morse code? I was like, yes, and completely forgot about all the other stuff that I originally wanted to do and make this new, shinier, sillier thing. And to be fair, I knew it would involve using WebSockets, which I wanted to learn anyways. So, WebSockets are like HTTP, and that they're a connection protocol used between a client and a server. And the web was originally built around HTTP. It's transactional. You as the client make a request, a connection is open, request is sent, server receives that, sends a response, connection closed. Imagine, if you will, that HTTP is like the Pony Express. You have a horse sent off with a request letter, galloping down the connection, reaches its destination and delivers the letter. gets a response letter, gallops back, delivers the letter, the exchange is done, and the horse is very tired. But just like the electrical telegraph came along to upgrade our communication from the Pony Express, we can see WebSockets as an upgrade to the HTTP protocol. So it is an upgraded HTTP request. You send an upgrade header, and the server will respond if it accepts WebSocket protocol with an upgrade header in the response. And so then you have a WebSocket connection, and it allows the client and server to push messages to each other at any time without relying on previous requests or responses. So in our very basic chat room, we have the input box at the bottom, which is a form, and it submits your message when you hit send. And the socket, our connection, emits a send event from the client with your message attached. And then on the server side, we receive that event, take the attached message, and then put it back out to all the clients listening as a chat message event. And then all the clients get that chat message event, and they translate it on the client side into the Morse audio. So I will try and do a live demo now. Kind of scary, but oh my gosh, I don't know why it does this. So yeah. And then if you join the chat, you get different ones. Okay, so beautiful, harmonious. So yeah, I'm sorry I've run over my time, but I hope you enjoyed sharing this fun and very useless project with you, and hopefully it's also inspired you to go out and build some fun, useless things as well, because you never know what you might learn when you do.